Hello, Rising Phoenix family. Trevor, Master Olds here with some thoughts on teaching.
Yes. So sometimes we get asked by parents to kind of push their kids harder.
What's the verbiage that they use? They say, like,
Yeah,
it's
you know,
okay.
It's okay to be hard on my kid. And I'm never really sure where that's coming from. Of course, sometimes I am, hard on the kids if they're not listening or paying attention, all that kind of stuff. But usually they'll say something like, they're not listening at home or at school, I really want you to kind of, they don't say break, but, kind of be hard on them. Get them in line.
They're looking for you to be the, what?
The disciplinarian maybe, or something. And I'm not saying it's not coming from a good place, and that is not something that's coming down the line. But usually this happens when they first start, or they've been doing it for a few months. I consider, even the first year to be kind of like just starting down this path, especially the first few months. And a lot of times the parents would come to me and they'll be like, it's okay to be hard on my kids. Like, I want you to kind of get them in line. And usually the kids that are having trouble with that, they're getting that at home a lot. A parent who's like, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, and like kind of really trying to micromanage them and control them in a strong way. And I kind of see the same parent that's doing that at home wanting me to do that on the floor, and I think that that's actually not gonna work. The reason why they're sending them to me is because it's not working at home. And if we just keep doing that, it's just going to keep going down the same path. What kids really need, and this is my experience, I've been doing martial arts for 30 years. I started teaching when I was 12 years old, just a kid myself. And what they really need is, first, you need to develop a bond with them. I say friend, but not really a friend, obviously. Not like,
it's not like you're going to pal around
with them, but they need to, develop some love and respect for me and feel like I have their best interest at heart. And that's really our first goal. In addition, building up that passion for the martial arts. A lot of times I hear the parent right from the beginning say things like, they'll call me up and they'll say, so-and-so can't come to class for the next couple months because we're taking Taekwondo away from them because they weren't listening at home or at school. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the worst idea you could do. I mean, how much do you think Taekwondo really matters to them? I mean, it matters a lot to me, and it will matter a lot to them in the future. But when they're first starting out, it doesn't mean much. You got to first get their whole identity wrapped up in it. Once their identity is wrapped up in it, you can put some pressure on them and say, do something like that.
Once they're invested. Once they're invested.
But like at the beginning, that's just, it feels like kind of shooting yourself in the foot before you can really get started.
So you're kind of saying, when they're just starting out, it's not a bad sentiment to be like, yeah, you can push my kid, but you don't want to crack down really hard right when they're starting out. You were telling me a little bit about that. You described it in a way as you need to build them up, and you
gotta build them up before you can kind of break them down and remake them. And I like to talk about this.
You were saying you want to build them up, and some when they first start out, they're not doing the best techniques and all that kind of stuff, and. So you have to be supportive of them, and you have to say, good job, even though they're kicking, at their knee level.
So this whole sentiment, you can be hard on my kids, comes both from a disciplinarian side, but it also a lot of times comes from like, my kids just aren't kicking well. Like they're just kind of throwing their legs up there, and they're kind of half arsing it, And what I want to encourage the parents to do, because we're a team, we're a team, teaching team is like, just be a little patient. It's going to take some time. They're going to start out that way. Everyone starts from a different place. Some kids, they come in and they already learned to push themselves at a really high level. Some kids, they're not there yet. Now, I would be a bad teacher if I never pushed them, okay? But that's not our strategy. Our strategy is to create a trajectory and a plan of how they're going to move up and increase that fire, okay? And kind of tell them, this is where we're going, okay? And we're going to get you ready. It's kind of like...
Yeah, you're likening it to a runway.
Yeah, like a runway. It's like if I said, okay, we're taking off right now and there's no runway at all, and I just throw the plane out there, we're just going to crash and burn, you know?
Yeah.
We got to have some area to kind of start picking up speed and taking off. It's like if I said, okay, you start Taekwondo today, all right, we're going to go blast you off into space in 10, 9, 8. You're like, what? I don't know anything about, launching, like this space, we're going to die, it's going to be over.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of build them up. People come in here and sometimes they're out of shape. They have never pushed themselves in a long time, sometimes never. Telling them to I want you to throw you into the gauntlet of doom and you got to push yourself to the nth degree. Mm-hmm. You're just going to break them and they're going to leave. And a lot of schools do that, So I kind of liken it to the walkabout. It's kind of a Australian Aboriginal cultural coming of age phenomenon where I think it's between 10 and 16 or
something
so.
Like that.
They go on a sort of a pilgrimage where they kind of go out into the wilderness and walk around and learn from that experience how to be a man. Well, if I said, look, at 4 years old, you have to do your walkabout, the kid is going to go wander off in the woods and starve and die. That's not when you do it. You do it once they've been prepared. Okay, so when kids first come in, we're preparing them.
Yeah. You set a goal, and they can see that goal, and they can feel, I might not be at that level yet, but they have a goal, and as they're moving towards that goal, you're giving them support on the way. You're saying, good job, even though it's not perfect. And then eventually, you were saying...
Yeah, eventually, we do need to push them to fly. Now, I think there's kind of two failures that we can make. One is that we never push them to fly. Mm-hmm. They just stay in that sort of childish state for the rest of their life and never push themselves and all that kind of stuff. And then the other one is that we try to push them right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Both of those are
which is what we were talking about at the
misguided.
Beginning.
Yeah. And finding out when the right time is not a science, it's an art. You got to look at what you're working with and tailor your decisions to that individual.
Because a kid might come in and he's had no pushing up until then. He may have had all pushing. And
sometimes pushing really hard makes them that way more. Because I tell my instructors this all the time. Be careful when you push the kids too hard, because if they feel like you are attacking them, they're going to shut down. And once a kid shuts down, they're not going to listen to anything you have to say.
Yeah.
So, and usually they become kind of apathetic. So if they hear all the time that they do everything wrong and that you're not trying hard enough and all this kind of stuff, they eventually just shut down and they stop trying. Mm-hmm. So what you got to do is you got to first try to create a connection. Then you've got to give them some guidance and kind of steer them in the right direction and give them sort of, light jabs like, this is not the way you should be acting right now. This is what you need to do if you want to be good at Taekwondo, blah, blah, blah. But at a certain point, you need to try to find some... when I'm teaching on the floor, I'm always looking for opportunities to praise the kids.
This is what I was going to say. You're like watching with hawk eyes.
Yeah, so I see this
one
student who never listens, but then one time he listens really well, and I'm like, whoa.
And maybe even inadvertently. Yeah. He's just naturally sitting there. Yeah. He's not thinking about it, but you find that one moment, you say, great job. And then he goes, I did it right.
Yes, and you'll be surprised. When you do that, you're light on the punishment only when it's absolutely necessary. You try to build the bond, and when you see him do something that you like, him or her do something you like, you compliment them and make an example. Say wow, look at Johnny, the way he's sitting right now, perfect Taekwondo sit. That's what I want to see from my students, from all of you guys. Then he feels like, whoa, I am capable of being a leader here and not always, kind of goofing up and, being the bad example. And that is what takes that student to the next level. Now, sometimes...
It's not a one-night transformation.
It's not an overnight transformation. That's the thing that we need to, it's hard to talk about it with parents because, giving parenting advice is always difficult. And I'm not really trying to give parenting advice here. I'm just trying to give you, this is what I find that works. I've been teaching for 20 years or more, and I can see what works with the kids. And it's hard when you are, I have kids too, okay? And when you're there 24/7, it's difficult to have the patience and the distance to kind of play the long game.
Yeah.
Because you just gotta play the day-to-day game, okay? So that's one benefit that I think I have as the instructor. But we got to try to find it in ourselves to have that patience and take a deep breath and remind ourselves that this is a long game that we're playing.
And it's difficult when you have days like random kid Johnny. You find that one moment when he's really great, might be inadvertent, and that day he's great. And then next day, he's kind of noodling around. Mm-hmm. It feels like a backslide. But if you come in and you crush it, then it's going to invalidate everything that you did. So you can't let them just run free. You got to keep that structure. But over time, they learn that when you are holding them to that structure, you're not being mean. It's just these are the rules, and I'm not being cruel. It's just these are the rules. This is the way that we have to do this. Yeah. And because we've done that foundational work, getting them invested, they respect us. They want to do this. Okay, these are the rules. So these are the rules I have to play by to be able to do this fun stuff that I also want to do.
Yes.
And that lets you get to the next time that they do something good and you find it. I know there's been times when I've seen that moment, but I've been, in the middle of something else and I haven't been able to catch it, and I'm like, I missed that opportunity. No, it's not just one time, and now they're not a student anymore. But that's definitely something that I'm always on the lookout. That's what I feel like is the main thing, is juggling all these balls. Make it look like I'm doing this, but I'm really watching the kids without them thinking that I'm watching them.
Yeah,
because if you just stand over a kid and they'll behave to a certain extent. If you stand over them all class, that's going to build up and not end well.
Yeah, that's something I think all of my new instructors learn pretty quickly. Is there's a ton going on under the surface. Yeah. You can't just stand up there in front of the class and give them some exercise to do and expect them to listen. There's you're actually spinning a ton of different wheels simultaneously. You're thinking about what you're doing next while watching the class and seeing what they're doing, and while disciplining the kids simultaneously. And that takes a ton of mental space.
It's almost like you have all these kids out there and you're doing these little course corrections before it goes down where it becomes you're going to have to take a serious action to really remedy it. So you're trying to, this kid might start getting noodly, but he just did something great, so I'm going to praise him. That's going to keep him on a good trajectory for the rest of the class, or maybe just for 10 minutes. Yeah. And then I got to show him, there's this other kid that's doing something. And so then he sees that, and then that helps. You're doing all these little things. I think we're feeling that. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the problems that's really hard with live.
That's what I was going to say. I didn't really want to bring it up, because we're not physically there.
I'm not able to really see too well what's going on. We're going to be improving that as we get bigger monitor and stuff like that. But it's a little bit difficult to do all those course corrections that are needed to keep the kids kind of on path.
Yeah, I think parents might be noticing now a little bit all of the things that we're doing that might not seem immediately obvious that are helping the kids not just go, there's a thing over on the wall. Let me go explore that, because there's lots of exciting things going on.
Yeah, that's what will happen.
It's not just entertaining them. It's not just all this structure. It's a lot of subtle things.
I think this is good, but I think we're getting a little bit off course here. I wanted to kind of go back. We've had some really just amazing stories in the school already of people kind of rising to the challenge. And I don't want to go into any names, although I'm very proud of all of them. Yeah. But we've had students that when they came in, they were one of our goofiest students. Just running around like a chicken with their head cut off, not listening to anything. And they, we got that under control. That's easier to do, honestly. That we can get that pretty much sorted out. But the second level of, I want you to push our kids, which is I want my kids to actually try their very best every single time they come on the floor. That's more challenging. And that usually comes in when they start getting to maybe that green belt level where they go to test and they fail. And they realize that the level that they're putting of energy and effort they're putting into their training is just not enough to continue down this journey. And at that point, it means something to them because they've put in a year or more of hard work into this, and they're starting to build their identity into it. And it's at that time when they don't pass to green belt, and they say, I need to step up to the plate. And we've had a few that, have had that experience, and I'll tell you,
they're like our best students.
They're completely different people. And so, a lot of this is hard. This is really hard for me because I'm always worried the parents are going to get all angry with me because I didn't pass them and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of my instructors I've trained in the past, they always cave. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you get the student who doesn't try, and he doesn't try at green belt and at blue belt and at red belt, and they just keep pushing them up through, and then that's how these McDojos are formed, where there's no belt standards.
Because that's a scary moment when you have to make that call. It's kind of, you were saying, that walkabout moment. It's the moment when they take it into their own hands and they face a trial, and you can't help them anymore. You've done the prep work, and they have to face that. And if they don't meet that bar, there is a chance that they could pull out. And now, hopefully, all that work that we've done beforehand, getting them invested, doing that foundational work, when they face that trial, they rise to it. And
it's like
they make that turnover into that next stage, but it's scary.
Yeah, you got to keep laying the tarmac until you really think that it's the right moment for them to fly. Yeah. And then you say, look, this is the end, go. And if it's an art, because you could say go, and they just crash, and they get really discouraged, they cry and they quit, or they can soar. Mm-hmm. And I think you got to take that risk to be able to be a teacher in a school that actually makes this change in people's lives. Yeah. And while that might not always be the best short-term business decision, I think it really hasn't affected us very much. And I think it is ultimately the right long-term decision because it will mean that we are a school that produces the kind of leaders that we as an industry always say that we do.
Kind of talking to, do you want to talk about leading and leading by example?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I don't want to. This is kind of stuff that's a little hard to talk about because I don't want to.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about kind of growing up, being a younger, especially for me, being a younger brother really helped me be a leader. Once I was a follower, saw what it was like to follow someone, gave me a lot of perspective on how best to get the best out of the kids. I didn't know if you were.
I think I'm kind of in the best position because I was the middle brother, and so I knew what it was to just idolize my older brother and follow him around wherever he went and do whatever he did, and just like be that person. And then I also knew what it was to be the older brother and kind of be like, look, you can't say things like that. That's super rude, and kind of mentor you and shape you into the person that you are today. And I think you need both. Sometimes I was talking to a friend, and she was talking about another friend of ours who owns her own business, and she was saying, well, she's just the kind of person who's not unagreeable, but she couldn't be in any position but at the very top, like owning her own business. And I'm thinking, that's the kind of person that shouldn't own their own business. That's the kind of person who shouldn't be a leader. The person who cannot follow cannot lead. You have to be. You learn so much by following that you can use that as a leader. Like, I have no barometer to make decisions except for my own time at the bottom. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I talk a lot. I not just talk, but I really respect my Master Kwan, and all my instructors. Is because, well, I need to show how we show respect
Yeah.
to our seniors, to my senior, for my students to show respect to me, you know? And in that relationship, like when Master Kwan came here to teach you guys, when Master Kwan was in my house, he was telling me what to do in my own house and, you know, telling me how I had to treat my wife and take care of my kids and kind of kicking me around. And I just say, yes, sir, do whatever he says because, you know, he's my master, okay? Now, I'm less Korean, okay? So I'm not like that. But that's always good to know that I'm always a junior, you know? And I think that kind of relationship where you're, you know, you always need to be at the bottom and you need to have some sense of being at the top. Everyone needs this to feel secure. And if you need to feel like you're at the top of something to feel secure, but you also, if you get only that, you get a rampant ego unless you're also kind of at the bottom somewhere else.
You know, that made me think of the idea that, you know, we're a team helping to raise these kids. And kind of talking about parents coming in saying, I want you to be hard on my kid. Also, the way that a parent treats us really affects how the kids treat us.
Yes.
So you're saying, you know, the reason, one of the reasons why you show so much respect to Grandmaster Kwan is because the kids will learn how to treat you by the way that you treat your elder. And can you talk a little bit about parents who come in and you know want to call you by your first name and but yet want their kids to respect you?
Yeah. So you know when I asked to be called Master Olds, it's not because it's an ego thing and I think I'm a master of all things and whatnot. It's just because that's title was given to me. That you know that's what martial arts instructors who are 4-3 black belt and above are called. But it is also a really useful training tool. If the parent comes in, like you're saying, and says, Mr. Old, or just Michael, or you know, calls me by my first name or whatever, what kind of example is that setting for the kid? The kid then thinks, well, that's what I can call him, and it makes it very difficult for me to develop a proper relationship with him where he respects me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the parents who are reluctant to call me Master Olds or show like a high level of respect for me, like when they're at home, they're like, you know, Master Olds said you should do this, you should, and kind of show deference to me.
Deference, yeah.
Is a little bit because they're like worried that, well, I'm having trouble getting my kid to respect me, and if I now kind of bow down to Master Olds and kind of make him the most respected person, they won't respect me at all. So
they feel like they're lower.
They're going to undercut themselves, and then that's not going to work. And that's not what's going to happen. First of all, you, by showing that respect, are going to show by example to your kids that that's what you need to do. That's what he should be doing. And then on the floor, I'm going to be telling him, hey, Johnny, you need to respect your parents. You know, I respect Master Kwan. I respect my parents. This is very important. We need to respect those who came before. You know, your parents gave you everything you own. They've taken care of you. They nurtured you up. They taught you pretty much everything they know. You know, this deserves a lot of respect. You know, you need to show them respect. And it's that kind of that mutual understanding and that shared relationship that will allow us to work together as a team.
Yeah.
To develop strong leaders.
You were also talking a little bit about this kind of ties back to parents who see their kid is, you know, being a little noodly, and they get really hard on it. I love that word.
That's so true, though, isn't it?
Yeah. They see the kid being kind of, you know, all over the place, and that makes them feel, oh, like little bears, oh, my kid is running all over the place, or he's not listening, or he's not trying hard, and then that makes them get really, really tough on the kid. But you were saying, but if the parent is not willing to show the respect and is not willing to get in there, that really kind of undercuts the whole process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I kind of articulate that exactly how I wanted, but
yeah. So
it's like it's really easy to judge your kid being out there, you know, not listening.
So I think kind of to sort of summarize it a little more is like, you know, you have a parent who they end up pulling their kid out after 6 months because every time the kid would get off the floor, they would feel like the kid wasn't trying. And then in the car, they would say, you know, so-and-so, why weren't you trying harder? You need to push yourself. If I'm going to pay for you to go to this class, you've got to push yourself. Okay? Well, he's just starting, so it's a lot to ask him to completely change the way he is in just a few months. And it's easy for the parent to do that because the parent doesn't have any skin in the game. They have nothing to sacrifice. They're not being vulnerable themselves. And it's funny because a lot of those parents are not the parents who are willing to get, I might get myself in trouble here, but are willing to get on the floor themselves and wear the funny pajamas and say yes sir and, you know, do all that kind of stuff because, like, look, that's intimidating. That's difficult. And that's what your son or daughter is facing when they're out there. And the first thing they need to do is become secure and comfortable in the funny pajamas, saying those things and doing all that stuff and pushing themselves even half-heartedly to keep up with the rest of the class. Once they are at a good point there, that's when we can start layering and pushing them harder and harder. I remember when I was a kid, I came home crying one time from class, and I was like, Master Paul was so hard on me. He's like saying everything is wrong, you know, and I don't remember him being like that. Why is he so hard on me? And I feel like he's become so hard on me, you know, ever since I got my black belt. And I remember my mom saying the reason why he's hard on you is because he knows you're one of his best students. You know, that's why he's pushing you so hard. And I'd like to tell that to a lot of my top students because they notice that. They're like, wow, you know, when I first started, like Master Olds was always like, good job, and like the kicks are like, you know, terrible, you know, but he's great. But then when they start getting some credentials under them, I start being like, well, look, we got to clean this up. You need to do this, and I'm starting correcting a lot of stuff, and they feel like, oh, he's being so hard on me. I feel like I should be the one he's correcting the least. I feel like the inexperienced instructors do the opposite. The inexperienced instructors will, when the white belt comes on the floor, they say,
because it's really easy to see all the things they're doing wrong.
Yeah, it's really easy to see, obviously. You know, you need to pivot, you need to inflect more, you need to hit the instep of your foot, you need to, you know, send your toe, whatever. And there's so many things, and like, I can't remember all this, so they try again, and then, of course, it's not going to be right, but then the inexperienced instructor will say, it was wrong. You need to do it again. And then you do it again. Of course, it's not going to be right. Their body is physically incapable of doing what you're asking.
Their body hasn't learned.
And the inexperienced instructor will just keep hammering it at them. And I've had, there was one instructor at a program that I was in with one of my girlfriends in college, and I remember she broke down and started crying because the instructor just would not stop saying, it's wrong, do it again. It's wrong, do it again. And you can break people that way, and that's not what you want to do. Listen, when people first start, they're going to be the worst they're ever going to be, and they're going to be, everything's going to be wrong. And the best thing you can do is limit the criticism to what they are able to handle. You know, if they're not able to handle anything, then don't give them anything. Just try to nurture them up. When they're ready for one piece of criticism, give them one piece of criticism. When they're ready for two, give them two. And by the time they're ready for three, they've probably gotten the first one pretty good. You know, and you just keep going like that. That's how it needs to be. So, I don't know, I think we've hit a lot of the points that we wanted to talk about today. This is just food for thought. These are things that I've noticed over the years and the way I try to work with the students on the floor. And I think if we're on the same page with a lot of this stuff, we will see that that growth increase, you know. Some of my best students, I have the best relationships with the parents, and we both know we're on the same page with all of this. And so if we can be on the same page as a team, I think it's just going to make things better. So until next time, guys, keep training hard.
Take care.
Catch you next time.